This is lab 17 on the dog specimen. So today we're continuing our abdominal viscera, and I feel like I say this a lot, but just bear with me, there's a lot of terms on this list that we will go through. So you see the greater omentum here, which we've already done, and we're just going to reflect that off. And you're looking for your pancreas is the first thing on your list today. So I usually start on the right side of the dog, and so just lift up that greater omentum, kind of pull out your duodenum, and look for the right lobe right here. So my fingers are kind of elevating it. It goes all the way down here. So if you flip your duodenum over then, you can see this lobulated tissue right here. That will be your right lobe of your pancreas. Then the body of the pancreas is up by the pylorus. So that's going to be right in this area here. And then the left lobe, we just have to move the intestines kind of out of the way. And left lobe will actually be right here. Alright, so that's your pancreas. And then we will move on to your major and minor duodenal papilla inside the duodenum. So you're making an incision just on this descending portion here and opening that up. And you do have to kind of peel away this mucosa and scrape everything out of there. And it's more difficult than you think it will be. So here, if I hold that there and grab a probe, this little guy, after you scrape off the mucosa, this part doesn't scrape off. This is the major duodenal papilla right there. And you just use a scalpel handle or something like that to just scrape away the mucosa in the intestine there, and that won't scrape away. So that's the major duodenal papilla. That is where the bile duct and pancreatic duct come in. Then you're also going to have a minor duodenal papilla. So if you see when I poke at it like that, it doesn't come off. So this is the minor, right here, this little nub. So minor duodenal papilla, and that's where the accessory pancreatic duct dumps into the duodenum. So those can be a bit of a challenge sometimes. All right, then we're looking for the adrenal glands. And so you want to kind of pick up your caudate lobe of your liver. Here's your kidney. And kind of pull that out of the way. If I hold that, hopefully you can see right here is one of your adrenal glands. So this is on the right side. So this is adrenal. It kind of has this vein going over the top of it. But adrenal is right here. So that's right side. And you have one on the left side as well. So then you push everything over. This one's a little bit easier to find. So here's your kidney. Just go cranial to that. So here's that adrenal here on the left side. And then if you cut it open, you can see that it does have a lighter colored cortex on the outside and then a darker colored medulla on the inside. So those are your adrenal glands. And then we'll do the kidneys. So you have a left and a right kidney, obviously. This is on the left side. This is the kidney. You'll have to kind of pull it out of the fat and fascia there. And then on the left side, you're making an incision so that you're creating a dorsal and ventral section. So you're going transversely across here and opening it up so you have a dorsal side and a ventral side to the kidney. And you open it up like that. So then you'll be able to see that the kidney also has that cortex, that outer lighter color. And then the medulla, the inner darker color. And then on this section you'll see the renal pelvis, which is where the ureter comes in. So this dilation here, right where the probe is going to be the renal pelvis. Then you have on either side of where that comes in, that ureter comes in, that's the renal sinus. So just right here and right here would be renal sinus. It's kind of filled with fat there. And then if I close this back up, where all the vessels and the ureter are coming in is the hilus. So that's right here. You have your ureter coming out here. So that's what we were just looking at, where it goes inside the kidney. Now you want to make another section parallel to the first section and then open that up. And you're looking for these renal pyramids. So they look like little pyramids in the kidney. So renal pyramid. Open this up a little bit more. The pelvic recesses. So it's hard to see on this, but in your book on figure 423, there's a good picture that illustrates this. But the pelvic recesses are going to be where these pyramids are pushing into where that ureter comes in. So just these little areas here where it's kind of making an indentation there. Okay. So then on the other side, on the other kidney, you're moving to the right side. And I think it's easier to see on this one for the renal crest. So you're making an incision in the right kidney, just making a cranial and caudal half and opening it up like that. And then the renal crest is right here. So I think it's easier to see on this section than on the others. So renal crest is right there. Okay. And then we'll move on to the ovaries, I think. So we have a female dog here, and so we do have the uterus and ovaries are both here and intact. So we will try and look at some of those things. So here I'm picking up the uterine horns. So you have right side and left side. You have the body of the uterus. And then down here, where this bump is by my thumb, that I'm running my thumb over, that would be the cervix. So it's just a bump just below, or right above the bladder here. So that's the cervix right there, body, uterine horns, and then we move up to the ovaries. So you're looking for the ovary, which is actually hidden in all of this, and we'll go over what the mesenteries are here in a minute. But here I have actually opened up the what's called the ovarian bursa. So you can actually see the ovary here on the right side. So this is the ovary, and so that lies in this little sac-like ovarian bursa. And here, I've actually uncovered the uterine tube. So here's this little kind of worm-ish thing. You see it snaking around here like that. That's the uterine tube. And here is the tubouterine junction, where the uterine tube joins up with the uterus here. So tubouterine junction, uterine tube. And then inside the ovarian bursa is where you'll find the infundibulum. So the funneling down, and it has these fimbriated edge here, the fimbriae, and it funnels into the uterine tube. So this is the infundibulum here, goes into that uterine tube, and then the egg would travel down. Okay, so then we also have the proper ligament of the ovary. So that is connecting the ovary to that uterine horn, so that would be right here. And the suspensory ligament of the ovary suspends it from the body wall, so suspending the ovary here, suspensory ligament. All right, and then we will name our mesenteries. So the whole thing is the broad ligament of the uterus. Here, if I hold this all up. So all of this is all broad ligament of the uterus, and that has different parts. So the mesovarium is part that connects to the ovary. So mesovarium would be here. Mesometrium connecting to the uterine horn and uterine body. So mesometrium, mesovarium. Then we have mesosalpinx, which is connecting to the uterine tube itself. So here you would have mesosalpinx, all of this. And then mesosalpinx runs together with mesovarium. And that creates that ovarian bursa there. And then we have this edge right here that you see kind of stretching and going down towards that inguinal canal area, the inguinal region. And that's going to be the round ligament of the uterus. So right there. And then you also have all of those things on the other side. So if you can't find it on one side, you have the other one to look at there. All right. Then we'll move on to and just one figure that's in your book, two figures actually. Figure 4-24 and 4-25 are really helpful for all of those female structures. Okay, then we have, so obviously we have parietal peritoneum, which is the outer walls lining the cavity, and then visceral is covering the organs like we talked about previously. We have the greater omentum, but today we're talking about the lesser omentum. So I mentioned it on the last lab, but this is the lesser omentum here. And then there's a small hole to get into the lesser omentum. So if you go just under, lift up all your intestines and go by this caudate lobe of the liver, you can actually get into that omental bursa that we had talked about. Let's see if I can show you that. Or maybe if I you can try and stick a finger into the epiploic foramen, is what that's called. So I don't know if you can see my finger moving there, So that's the epiploic foramen. That's that natural passageway into that omental bursa. All right, and then we'll move on to the mesoduodenum. Sorry, I lost my place there. So mesoduodenum. So basically mesenteries are named for what they're connecting to. Mesoduodenum is connecting to the duodenum. So you have mesoduodenum, and it actually houses the pancreas here. So that's there. And also I forgot to mention that lesser omentum has the hepatoduodenal ligament. So I know it's a small print term, but it's right here. So that edge that connects the duodenum to the liver, hepatoduodenal ligament. Okay, mesoduodenum, and then we have the mesentery. I call it mesentery because there's so much of it. So all of this connecting tissue going to jejunum. And then if you kind of pick all of that up in one hand, you'll feel how it's kind of attached to that dorsal wall, and that would be the root of the mesentery. So we'll be looking at all these vessels and things coming out here, but that's the root of the mesentery there that I'm lifting up, and if you just kind of pick it up, you can see it's making this attachment. So that's the root of the mesentery. Right? Then we have mesocolon, which part of mine has been destroyed for today's lab. But you have your ascending, transverse, and descending colon, and they all have mesentery attached. This would also here. But those are all mesocolon. Okay. Then we have the right and left triangular ligaments of the liver. So if I lift up, let's see, the best way to show you this. Oh, I think I just ripped it actually, which might be helpful. So this is the right triangular ligament right here. It's kind of ripping away from the liver there. It's connected to the diaphragm. So this is the right triangular ligament. And if I just pull this over, and that's a nice view here of the left triangular ligament right here. So connecting the liver and the diaphragm. All right, and we already did the falciform ligament, which if you remember was this fatty filled structure here that was like that. Okay, and now onto the fun nerves of this lab. So you're going to be cutting the left crus of your diaphragm, which I've done here, and I think that's easiest just to move it and get it out of the way. Then you're looking again at your vagal trunks. So we had our vagus nerve here. This is the left side, so left vagus. And that breaks into a ventral branch and a dorsal branch. So ventral branches then from left and right sides come together and make that ventral vagal trunk here. And then dorsal branches come together further down here. So then this would be dorsal vagal trunk, continuing on down. To this side, hopefully be able to hold this up. Okay, so then that dorsal vagal trunk will give off a celiac branch that's going to go down into this mess you see right here. So that is the celiaco-mesenteric plexus. So there's a celiac branch that comes off of this right here. So it looks like it's going to be this one right here. You see it pulling on there. So that will be the branch going to this plexus. Then you're also following the sympathetic trunk, which we had found before, and it just travels down here along the back. So we're looking at sympathetic trunk and then trying to find where it's giving off a splanchnic. So major splanchnic and minor splanchnic nerves come off of that. So if I pick this up, you'll see sympathetic coming here, gives off this really large branch. So that's going to be major splanchnic nerve right there, and that's going to that plexus as well. And then, if you see this little guy here, would be a minor splanchnic. So a lot smaller, a lot more difficult to find. So minor splanchnic right there. And those are contributing to, again, this celiaco-mesenteric ganglia and plexus. So all of this whole thing is that's the name for it, but it is made up of several different parts. So we have the celiac ganglion on one side, so we have two of those, one here on the left and one will be on the right. So that's the celiac ganglion. And then we have the cranial mesenteric ganglion that is a horseshoe shape, and it actually wraps around, so where my probe is the other side. So that would be on the right side. So here's the left half of it, and it horseshoes around and goes up the other side in the same way, and then connects with that right celiac ganglion on the right side. So it's one big plexus, and it has all those different parts. Okay, then I think we just move on to the caudal mesenteric ganglion and plexus. And then you have, so if you move down here, and this is why that was all, my mesocolon was all torn up, but here is that caudal mesenteric ganglion, this bump right there. And you can see this little branch coming in from the side. That's actually a lumbar splanchnic coming from that sympathetic trunk there. So lumbar splanchnic, caudal mesenteric ganglion. And then coming off of your caudal mesenteric, you'll have two nerves that you want to look for, and they are the hypogastric nerves. So here you can see kind of a V shape here and here. So this is left hypogastric nerve, and this is the right hypogastric nerve. And so you want to see those coming off of there. And then the thing in the middle is actually, there's an artery in there too. So we'll dissect that later, but you're just looking for these hypogastric nerves for now, and the ganglion. All right, and I think that's it for Lab 17.